This is an NBC5 special report.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Zoraida Samble, and breaking news this morning. After what was an intriguing day in court yesterday, we hope to learn more about what may be on the minds of the jury in the Blagojevich corruption trial. For the latest, we turn to NBC5's Phil Rogers, live at the Dirksen Federal Building. I understand that they just finished up there. What can you tell us, Phil?
Zoraida, the hearing is still in progress. It's a very somber proceeding this morning on all counts by all participants. Rod Blagojevich was certainly in no mood to talk as he arrived today, and when he got into court after a lengthy wait, Judge Zagel got on the bench and described a note he has now received from the jury. That note said that the jury has been able to reach agreement on only 2 counts. They have not even voted on the 11 wire fraud counts, and they say they have taken a look at all of the remaining counts, but they have not even given any indication of what their divisions or what their thoughts might be on those counts, only that they have not reached agreement. Again, agreement only on 2 counts, not even a vote on the 11 wire fraud counts. Remember, there are 24 counts in all. This would suggest that they might be having difficulty, especially with the racketeering count, because that includes all of the acts that are included in wire fraud. Remember, for racketeering, they have to be able to find at least 2 of those acts. The judge has indicated that he is sending a note back, or he wants to at least, that will essentially say, I understand what you're telling me, go back in, try to reconsider the wire fraud counts. I understand you may not be able to come to agreement on those, but go back in, see what you can do, and report back to us. It was not the full dynamite charge, as it is often referred to, but it was very, very close. The judge saying essentially, specifically, I want you to look at wire fraud and see what you can do with the remaining counts. But we're not there yet. The judge left the bench, he left the lawyers in the courtroom and said, I'll be back in 10 minutes. I want to hear what you all think of my proposed response, and we're waiting for that right now.
And so what happens next? Once he comes back, then the lawyers weigh in on what their decision is?
That's right, Zoraida, and very, very often they say, Judge, we'll go with what you want to do. Then he drafts the note, he sends it back to the jury, and then we see what happens. But the real shocking thing here, Zoraida, is that here we are, this many days, 11, 12 days into deliberations, and they've only been able to reach an agreement on 2 of 24 counts. That indicates a jury that is still sharply divided, because they haven't even considered 11 of the wire fraud counts. Now, that means they have addressed 13 others. But we also don't know how the defendants are splitting up here. For instance, Robert Blagojevich, 4 counts out of those 24. Have they addressed him yet at all? We're waiting to find that out, and right now we have no hints.
And what about the Senate seat charges? That's the one that everybody's talking about all the time. Do we know whether or not they've addressed that?
We have no way to know that, Zoraida, because it's addressed in the wire fraud counts. It also is in standalone counts, and it, of course, is an all-encompassing portion of the big racketeering count. That's count number 1, and, of course, that count is the one that carries a possible 20-year sentence.
Phil, do we know if this is standard practice, what the judge is suggesting, for them to go back and reconsider and spend more time?
Zoraida, it is, but very often there's extremely standard language. It's known as an Allen charge. It's drafted by each circuit. The 7th Circuit has its own standard Allen charge that basically instructs jurors to go back in, don't surrender your beliefs, but be willing to address your beliefs and be flexible. It's about a 2-paragraph standard order, which is often delivered to the jury. It's sometimes known as the dynamite charge, and it's an effort to blow them out of their current state and try to get some movement. That's not what he's delivering here. He's very specific with what he's saying. I want to address, if I can put this down, I want to address for you real quickly exactly what we're looking at. Racketeering is the very first count. It's the big one. It's the one that carries the heftiest prison sentence, and it's also the one that has all of those individual acts. It has the Senate seat scenario, the racetrack scenario. It goes into the tollway, all these alleged extortion attempts. They have to find that Rod Blagojevich committed at least 2 of those. Then there's a racketeering conspiracy charge. That's number 2. Then the wire frauds all kick in. And remember what wire fraud is. A count of wire fraud is a single phone call. So, for instance, the first wire fraud count is a phone call with the chairman of Children's Memorial Hospital in Florida. You'll remember that Rod Blagojevich was accused of shaking down Children's Memorial Hospital. Count number 4, a phone call with Rod and Robert. That's the first count that Robert Blagojevich is included on. That's another wire fraud count. They haven't even considered that one. And on and on and on. 3 calls to Washington, D.C. for Rod. Those are all associated with the U.S. Senate seat. 2 calls to Tom Balanoff in D.C., also associated with the Senate seat. A phone call to Doug Schofield, an advisor about the Senate seat. Another one to Schofield. A call to Lon Monk on the racetrack bill. And a call to advisors in Washington on the Senate. Now, those are the wire fraud counts, and none of those have even been voted on yet. Now, what does that say? Does that say that they're having trouble with the entire possibility of those being corrupt acts? Then what followed were 2 attempted extortion counts. 1, Rahm Emanuel and a North Side school. Have they voted on that one yet? We don't know. Number 15, attempted extortion on Children's Memorial Hospital. 16 is bribery on Children's Memorial. 17 is extortion conspiracy on the racetrack bill. 18, bribery conspiracy on the racetrack bill. Then number 19, attempted extortion on the remodeling of the tollway. 20 is bribery on the tollway. 21, extortion conspiracy on the Senate seat, as is attempted extortion on the Senate seat. Number 22, both of those have Robert on them. 23, conspiracy to solicit a bribe on the Senate seat. That also includes Robert. Number 24, false statements to the FBI. In the minds of many observers, the simplest of the counts, and really the one that was the most clear-cut that suggested outright guilt. This is the one where Rod Blagojevich was accused of lying to the FBI in the spring of 2005 when he was interviewed about his political practices. So there's where we stand right now. We're waiting for the response to the jury, and they will be standing by to see if we have further word from them. Zoraida?
We are looking forward to that. But if I could ask you one last question, did you see any reaction from Rod or Rod Blagojevich?
Not really. It was the kind of a stone-faced look across the courtroom, although I should tell you that Robert Blagojevich was in a wonderful mood when he arrived here today. He was chipper. He greeted everyone when he walked in. He looked like a man who was expecting good news today. His attorney believes that possibly he's getting a hung jury on his client. He said that wasn't what he was really hoping for. He was hoping for an outright acquittal, but that he would settle for that.
All right, Phil Rogers for us live at the Drickson Federal Building. We'll check back in with you. In the meantime, we'd like to bring on legal expert Tom Glasgow. He joins us on the phone. Are you there, Tom?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning to you. So we know you've been following all of this. What do you make of consensus on just 2 counts?
Well, they've come to a decision, and I agree with Bill. You essentially have probably got a consensus on the easiest counts. The racketeering charges are incredibly complex. Judge Dagel's commentary when he initially gave the instructions was, wow, I'd be excited if I were a juror to get this. Because of the complexity of the instructions, the 93 pages of actual charges, and then the further instructions that go along with it, are incredibly complex for a jury to go through, and I think that's part of the problem with them coming to a consensus.
And so what do you think is the next step in all of this? I know that we heard Phil say that the judge is saying that perhaps they need to go back and reconsider, but this is such a high volume of information that they are considering. How long would the judge give them?
There's nothing set in stone as to how long the judge is going to give them to deliberate. Remember when Ryan was on trial, you ended up with a jury that took several weeks in order to come up with any kind of determination. And this is an incredibly disciplined jury. Juries that I've had in the past, you can hear them when you're sitting in the courtroom waiting. You can hear them arguing, and you can hear them being very verbal and verbose with each other. This apparently is a very, very disciplined jury that really deserves a lot of respect because of the way that they've approached it. And they've approached it in a very disciplined and thoughtful manner. I believe that they will go back and they will follow the judge's instructions. They will go through everything piece by piece and come to some conclusion.
So, Tom, I know that we would be asking you just to speculate here, but you said that perhaps the consensus is on two of, the more minor charges. What do you think those could potentially be?
I think lying to the FBI probably is the simplest charge for them to digest. The remaining counts with regard to the bribery, the racketeering, that would be pure speculation on my part, because juries are very, very strange. They will get hung up on things that you and I, as observers from the outside, may not have picked up on, and may not sit and say, well, that's a sticking point for me. When I've interviewed juries after litigation in the past and after criminal trials, they end up talking about things that you sometimes really blow you away, and you think that they're minor points, and these were major sticking points for them. So we don't know what it is that's holding them up.
Are you surprised by this?
No, I'm really not. I gave up guessing when juries come back a long, long time ago, but this particular jury, with the amount of evidence that was given and the amount of jury instructions that they have to go over, I think it is completely within the realm of predictability to think that they are going to be out for quite some time going over this stuff. People have very strong opinions, and they don't relinquish those opinions when they go in the back. It is a give and take that they will go over for the next, probably several weeks to determine whether or not there is any kind of racketeering or any kind of bribery that has occurred. But, in the federal system, remember, they only have to be convicted on one thing for the defendants to be sentenced on all things.
All right. Well, we really appreciate your insight, legal expert Tom Glasgow. If you can continue staying there for us, we'll check back in with you. Thank you for your time.
No problem.
All right, so that is the very latest development in the Blagojevich corruption trial, but still no verdict and no indication when one might come. We will have full coverage of the jury's first communication in more than a week on NBC5 News beginning at 4:30. You can also check back with NBCChicago.com.